rights. And that's what they exactly did 3 decades ago. They attacked women in Iran because they wanted to attack people's rights. We need your support for women in Iran, Egypt, Tunisia. We're their voice here. We're here to say that we will not accept the reactionary Islamic rules. We're here to say that women's rights are universal, no matter where you are from. Tens of women, they actually taken off their clothes to show that. We say no to Sharia laws, we say no to Islamic laws that think the body of women is the source of corruption. They said no to misogynist laws. And here you go, we are hearing some people in England, some so-called women's rights, that they defend hijab. They say hijab is a way of clothing, it's people's choice. But I want to tell you, as a woman who've been kicked out of school in Iran because of not wearing hijab, as a woman who know how it feels like to wear hijab, that hijab is not a style of clothes. Hijab is not a piece of clothes. Hijab is a symbol of slavery. Hijab is a mobile prison. And therefore, all of you, every single of you, should actually be against it. In many countries, today and yesterday, symbolically they actually burned hijab. Many women's rights activists, because millions of women in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, many others, they don't have a choice. If they have a choice, they don't wear hijab, because hijab means that as a woman, your body is full of shame. That means you're a source of corruption. That means you are provoking men. And in fact, it's a big insult to men as well. So therefore, whatever you are, what do you see on the news that they're talking about hijab? Just last week in Guardian, they had a campaign that's showing different style of hijab. This is ridiculous. I'm asking you, why do you have to cover yourself? Why? Is there something wrong with you? Probably they assume something wrong with you. But as a woman, I'm not just a woman, I'm a human being. That I deserve to live a life worthy of a human being. And I don't let no law, no culture, nothing in the world to suppress me. But this is me talking to you in Trafalgar Square. I'm free to talk to you regarding this. But millions of women in Middle East, in the Islamic-stricken country, they're not allowed to. They've been punished for that. They've been arrested, tortured, raped, just because they're saying that I'm a human being, you have no right to suppress me. Women's rights is universal. But you know what? These courageous women in these countries, they haven't given up. They've been tortured, they've been kidnapped, they've been raped, they've been killed, they've been stoned to death, whatever you name it. But they haven't given up. They're still fighting. But they need your support. You might ask, how can I support? What I'm saying, many of you have Facebook, many of you read news, many of you listen to these shows and programs that they're talking about women and those nonsense about women in Iran and other countries that they chose to be stoned to death, that they chose to be beaten up. I want you to be the voice of them. No matter where you are from, if they insult women in those countries, it's an insult to you. And I'm not just talking about women. We have hundreds of men who are fighting for women's rights in Iran. This is not a battle between men and women. This is a battle between women and the capitalism system and the Islamic rules, specifically Sharia laws in those countries. If in England they ask you to say that, shall we bring some Sharia law? What's your answer? Do you want a Sharia law? Do you want to be stoned to death? Do you want to be covered? Do you want to be insulted? I don't think so. No human being want to live in that situation. So here we are. Have a look at all those pictures. Have a look at all those courageous women. I'm sure you remember this Pakistani little girl. Do you remember on the news that she is fighting for Malala, who is fighting actually for the right of little girls? What happened to her? He got shot by Taliban. We need to be Malala as well. We need to be the voice of those women who in Egypt and Tunisia coming to the street and asking for their right and demanding your right. Not just asking, demanding their rights. So we're here to say, women in those countries, specifically I'm talking about women in Iran, they have been fighting for 3 decades. They haven't given up. If someone told you that women in those countries want to be treated like that, nonsense. I want you to be the voice of them. I want you to put it on your Facebook, to put it on the social media you are, your colleagues, your union, you're working in it. You can do a lot. You can actually write to the British government and force them to condemn what's happening in Iran. For 33 years, coming to 34 years, it's a crime against women. You know what it feels like? That even, look at me, I'm wearing red. Do you think that is allowed? I don't think so. You're punished even for that. But bear in mind, this is only one side of the story. The other side is the huge struggle that women have in Iran against these Islamic rules. So be the big part of women. It's not Iran, Middle East, North Africa, women in all those countries. They're standing up against misogynist rules, against Islamic rules, against Sharia law. Sharia law and laws like that is not just law. It's for women's suppression. Remember, there are lots of things that talking about media and try to legitimize what is going on to women. Malala, why should Malala, the young Pakistani girl, should be shot? Because she's asking for the right, like going to school, like the little girl be allowed to have education. Be their voice, be their voices. You can have a look at it. There are websites that you can take a look at it. You can put in your phone, take a picture and put it on your Facebook and your Twitter. This is one thing you can do. Whenever you see a petition, sign it. Make a donation. Help us with this campaign to go on and fight against these inhuman laws. This is what we have been doing for the last 33 years. Women said no to Islamic rules. Women said no to hijab. Women in those countries saying no. We want secularism. We want women's rights. And women in Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, North Africa, whole Middle East, they want you actually. They want you to be their voice. You see that picture in the middle of that pavement there? That's the picture of Khamenei, who is the leader of the criminal regime of Iran. Feel free to step on it. Please do step on it and show your solidarity with people in Iran. People in Iran have stepped on his picture so many times in demonstration. Despite the fact that they might be arrested, they've been tortured in prison. So please step on Khamenei, feel free, you're not going to arrest it. That's the thing about it here. But if you do the same thing in other countries, probably you will be. So support them and be their voice.